Bonjour tout le monde. Mon nom est Juliette Powell. My name is Juliette Powell, and you are watching Talk About Justice. Today's subject is something that's very close to my heart, and in fact, close to many of our hearts. It's bullying, and we're going to try to get to the heart of the issue today. I'm standing here live in Gatineau, thanks to Jocelyn Parent, who's a teacher here. These are our students, and of course, they're all going to be commenting from the heart about this particular topic, but we're not alone. We've also got our friends in South Burnaby, and Hall's class is participating. Hello.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well. Thank you so much for joining us. We've also got our friends in Halifax that are here as well. And Wade Smith's class is up bright and early this morning to join in. Hello.
Hi, how are you doing?
Very, very well. Thank you so much once again for joining in. Now, we can't just do this with the students and with the teachers. We also have to go to the experts. And so let's head back over to British Columbia, where we've got a principal. Principal Luba Banouk is with us today.
Oui, bonjour.
Bonjour, madame.
Good afternoon. And we also have someone else from the RCMP, Alain Benjamin. Good afternoon. And finally, in Halifax, Mr. Cecil Wright. Hello, Cecil. And we are starting this discussion with Dr. Desbiens, who will help us to define the problem by ensuring that we're talking about the same thing. Dr. Desbiens, could you tell us what is bullying? Well, bullying and the difference with other violence and aggression that happens daily in the schools are three important issues. So it's a matter of strength. The tormentor is stronger than the victim, and physically also, but also psychologically stronger. And it's also a matter of intent. Intent, it's not by chance, it's a true intent to hurt the person psychologically, physically, to take away from that person. And there's a matter of repetition. The tormentor several times will act towards the same victims. So three very important parts of bullying as well as other types of violence. So let's go to Halifax to see if the definition is truly what happens in the school.
First and foremost, applies to your school, and if so, what exactly is happening in your school?
Well, I think that the definition makes a tremendous amount of sense simply because we spend a bit of time leading up to today talking about exactly what it is. And I think once we get into a discussion about the vastness of it, I think students find it a little bit easier to relate to. I think that a lot of people thought of bullying as a very stereotypical thing in which, you know, it's the person that takes your lunch money or bothers you on the way home, when in fact it comes in many forms and fashions. And as was mentioned, it can be psychological, physical. And I think that that's where the definition allows students to start to have dialogue.
Can you give us some personal examples at St. Patrick's High School, things that might have happened to you? Some of the students are there participating. You're the ones who really have to live with this on a daily basis, or do you?
Well, me personally, I don't get bullied, but I know people that do get bullied, and I know the people that get bullied aren't really... I know they don't like it, but I think that the people that do bully, I think they do it for attention, honestly.
So the reason is needing attention. But what happens when you get all of the attention because everybody's in on this joke and somebody forgot to tell you? I'm thinking specifically of cyberbullying, and I know that that's been a big issue, particularly in BC. So let's head over to the West Coast and get your opinions. Pouvez-vous partager quelques histoires?
Well, could you share a few personal stories with us?
I've had a very close friend who, when he came to Canada, he came from a different country, and when he came into the class, he did not know English, and there were people in his class who were from his origin but with a different religion, and they bothered him verbally, and he couldn't complain because he did not know English.
Oh, that's very, very sad. On parle de problèmes de langue.
We're talking about a language problem here that occurs in several ways. And we're in the heart of Quebec and Gatineau. And you, the students, do you have personal incidents that you would like to share with us? Or any ideas with which you agree or disagree? I believe that there's a lot of stereotypes whenever you talk about bullying. If you consider, for instance, a guy, a thug, or punk, I've been pestered by them, and I'm like anybody else. I have my principles, I have my life, and it doesn't change anything about it. People are not better than others because they show off differently. But it's quite interesting how we can think about it in our minds. But if we consider our actions, that's not always the way. So let's go again once to Burnaby.
You mentioned that the bully is psychologically stronger than the victim, but I don't think this is necessarily so. I think that the bully might be actually the weaker one and actually trying to prove to himself that he is strong in his own way. So that is why he would bully the victim. Thank you.
Now that's an interesting perspective. Is there anyone else in Burnaby that would agree or disagree with that point? Do we have perhaps either an expert opinion or a student opinion on that? Is the bully stronger or weaker?
I agree with Maria because I've seen bullies and they, as Maria said, bully because they're like kind of weak because they have to get into a group to do something. So that just proves that they have to get into a group, and so.
Okay, let's check with our friends here in Gatineau to see what they have to say. Est-ce que tu es d'accord, pas d'accord?
Do you agree or disagree? I do believe that there's a bit of both. Some can bully others to prove themselves, to show others that he's not like the one being bullied. He wants to be part of the group. And others, because they're big and strong and they want others to fear him and to have a certain power. So it's quite interesting to know exactly what are the benefits or the power in the mind of those who bully. And let's see in Halifax now.
Your opinions on this?
Well, I think that the young lady from Burnaby who spoke made an excellent point in that these people who are exhibiting bullying behavior, obviously it's really a cry for help. Though that's my personal way of looking at it. It comes from a series of factors which puts them at risk, anything from literacy rates, which oftentimes are covering up for low literacy skills. It could be substance abuse, it could be family violence, and a number of other risk factors which can lead one to commit these types of perpetrations on other people. But I think that the students here in Halifax, as well as across the country, need to start addressing that issue as a bystander. When you see a bullying situation taking place, I think probably about 75 to 80% of the people probably just walk away or they don't get involved. And I think what that does actually is empower the bully to continue that type of behavior. But, you know, when the momentum shifts to the other side where people are actually becoming involved, saying, listen, we don't want that taking place in our school, our community, our town, our country, that's when I think the situation will change a bit.
Well, it's interesting because you touched on perhaps the root of the bully, i.e. bullying is just a symptom of something deeper, but we're also looking at the root of society, really, because I think that you might be right in terms of the way that people behave when they see bullying in action. But again, let's get back to the students. What do you think? Is this truly something that's happening in your school? And when you see it happening, how do you react?
Well,
Halifax?
I try to help. It's hard to react to that when you see somebody being bullied because you feel that you can't do anything, even though it's kind of your power to change the attitude of the person that's being bullied and the bully. And when you're in that position, you get scared. And I think that's probably why people don't do anything in society or in school or workplaces, etc.
Yeah, it should be interesting to find out if, in fact, people are scared to interact with the bully when he or she is, in fact, bullying because they're afraid of being the victim next. Est-ce que tu as une opinion là-dessus, sur l'intimidation en général et également si...
Do you have an opinion on this? And if you see someone that's being bullied, will you react? We were saying previously that the people who bully wish to attract attention to themselves. So it might be a person of hierarchy, maybe somebody who's new in a school because he moves a lot. We will have him understand that maybe he's not in the right place. He's new. He will have to learn to be given recognition. Has that happened to you? Yes. My father is in the military. I moved a lot, and I've never stayed more than 2 or 3 years in one same school. Therefore, you get used to it, but at the beginning, it's very, very difficult. You have to get to know new people, new teachers, new environments. You get lost in the new school. And when the new people in your new school saw that you were being intimidated, how did they react towards you? I've always managed quite well. You find good friends, and you have people with whom you can discuss. And those who have hurt you, you learn to set them aside and not to let it bother you. So you have to report them. But you also have to learn that you have friends who stand for you. So therefore, you have to have your own network of friends.
To find out, first of all, what are your experiences with bullying? And secondly, is it true that when bullying is occurring in your school that people are just walking by and not doing anything about it?
Yes, I think that's a very true thing. At our school, we have a mentorship program, and we're the mentors here. And we try to come up with solutions for people to solve their problems. And it just gives that victim an edge to the bully. We don't want people to walk by and just not think about it. We want people to intervene and stop the situation. It's totally an imbalance of power that the bully has over the victim, and it really needs to be stopped.
Well, we all agree that it needs to be stopped. That's one of the reasons why we're doing this show today. C'est tellement important de comprendre non seulement...
It's so important to understand the root of bullying, but one also has to understand what we can do, and we'll deal with that later. Dr. Desbiens, you wanted to say something. Yes, I wanted to react to what the students were saying. Most of the time, whenever there is bullying, you have people around, you have other students who see this bullying, and very often it's hidden from adults, but other people are there and see it. And what's very sad with bullying is that most of the time, and research it testifies to it, most of the young people who see bullying will not react or intervene to help the victim. And whenever they do act, it's to reinforce the aggressor and say, oh, he's hot, he's strong. And because there's a certain power that bullier has, and we do not want to be bullied the next time. Many people see it, and sadly enough, we have to tell the students, you have to act, you have to help the victim, and you have to report it to the adults, not keep it inside, and not intervene by giving more power to the aggressor.
So Halifax...
Well, not really. I think, well, there's no real point of telling someone in a position of authority because it'll just happen again. If it's meant to be something that you want to do in front of people, then it's meant to be something that you want to show people and say, look, here it is, I'm hurting this person and I'm more powerful than this person. Then making it a bigger scene is just worsening the situation. You should either get the person to stand up or just stand up for the person on a peer-to-peer basis. Well, that's just my suggestion, but...
Well, we need all the suggestions that we can get because this problem is prevalent in just about every school that we've spoken to. Let's get your opinion. Est-ce que tu as une opinion là-dessus?
Do you have an opinion? Well, I do agree with Dr. Desbiens. I'll give you an example. When I was in elementary school and I was young, there was a young boy who was being bullied and pushed against a fence, and I intervened. And when the tormentor saw we were two people, he fled, and he never ever bothered this other boy or myself again. He was my friend. I took a risk, and it was worth it. And if it was to be done again, I'd do it. Well, great. Thank you very much, and thanks on behalf of your friend. That's wonderful that you had the guts to do this, and I think it demonstrates, after the fact, all the strength that you can have when you're young, and then it becomes a reality in your life throughout your whole life. It's interesting to see the evolution from a young age. Let's now speak to our friends in BC.
Burnaby. We've had somebody that agreed with Dr. Desbiens and somebody who disagreed. Where do you stand?
I think that bullying results from the parents at home because maybe they have a very violent act on their children. The bully wants to give this anger toward other people that are inferior to them. And in the case of at our high school, there are people that are bullies. But most people, if they get into a fight, people that are the bystanders, they usually don't do anything to break up the fight. They just walk by. I think because maybe if it's a really superior bully, he's really powerful. You don't want to get into a fight with him because you might get hurt. So it's a sense of safety. But if you can try to break the fight and you are maybe confident in yourself and stronger than the bully, then you might want to act.
Well, acting is something that we have to learn how to do. There are ways to do things, and that's what we're going to be talking about in the next section of our show here on Talk About Justice. Not just about the causes of bullying, but what we can do about it. At some point in our lives, everyone has had to suffer from bullying. Tout le monde a été intimidé.
Everybody's been bullied at one point in our lives. So we'll be able to discuss this in the second part. And you can interact with us by sending us some emails. We'll tell you how to do that in a few minutes.
A picture is worth 1,000 words. Take a look at this.
T'es stupide. T'es juste un bon à rien. Hey, les barnés, donne-moi l'argent de ton lunch, puis vite! Hey, tu fais dur, hein? Ben normal que personne veuille être ton ami. T'es le gars le plus stupide de toute l'école. Va t'écraser en face. Quoi, tu me crois pas? Amène-toi ici, va te montrer ça, moi. Ouais, amène tout le monde, amène n'importe qui, ça me dérange pas. Tout ce que les taxeurs veulent, c'est se faire remarquer. Mais imagine un peu comme il y aurait l'air fou si tout le monde les ignorait. Éloigne-toi, confie-toi, parce qu'un taxeur seul n'est jamais aussi fort que nous tous ensemble. Stupid! You're such a loser. Come on, Four Eyes, give me your lunch money now. Give it to me before I smack you. You know what? You're the dumbest kid in the whole school. No wonder nobody likes you. I'm gonna beat the snot out of you. Yeah, come on, bring it. Come on, let's go. Are you afraid of me, eh? I'll take all you guys on. Let's go.
Bullies just want to show off. But if everyone just walked away, imagine how silly bullies would look. Walk away. Tell someone. Because bullies aren't bigger than all of us.
Very, very powerful message there, and we want to hear from you. Please contact us via email. On vous demande de nous contacter via courriel.
Please email us. It's a problem which will not go away by itself. We have to dialogue, we have to discuss, and that's why we decided to do this show.
It's another thing to actually do it. Donc, comment tu t'appelles?
Daniel.
So what's your name? Daniel? Okay, Daniel, can you help us? You're next to the computer. We're receiving emails live.
Kind enough to volunteer. Maybe you could like to read one of those emails for us.
Okay. La première, c'est le thème.
Okay, the first one is definition. Ça s'appelle, à mon avis.
There are so many different reasons and type of bullying. There is the extreme type of bullying, which is obvious physical abuse, and there is the subtle type, which is so difficult to detect. Anybody could be bullied, anybody could be the bully. There are so many different characteristics of bullying that it cannot be described in one sense.
I agree with that. Lord knows I was bullied when I went to school. I was completely bullied. I was terrified of going to school for the longest time, and it's ironic that I'd have the opportunity to moderate this show today. On aimerait ça également avoir...
We'd also like to have some feedback in French because we are speaking both languages here. It's important to be able to show that all opinions are valid. I'm going to speak about one particular case that took place. It's in Canada. Again, it's not really a case. It's more what the teachers think. The teachers are wondering why the older students don't seem to have as many problems of bullying. I believe that one of the reasons, they say, is that the older students know better how to avoid bullying situations than younger students do, because when you're younger, you're not very familiar with conflict situations. And I do believe that older students are less afraid to report to a resource person a case of bullying. Well, that's very interesting. That's a point of view I'd never thought about. But we do have an expert here. Well, I mean, we have many experts throughout Canada, but there's one in particular.
Cool. Luba, you're out in Burnaby South. You heard the comment en français. Est-ce que tu es d'accord avec ça?
Do you agree with that comment?
Moi, ce que je...
Well, what I can tell you is that I have a few specific facts here about bullying that I'd like to share. What is very difficult to accept is that bullying happens just about every 5 minutes in the playgrounds of our school, and it happens even in class practically every 25 minutes there's a case of bullying. So 85% of cases of bullying is really taking place in front of bystanders in the school context. And it's very difficult to accept what is the role of a bystander. It's very difficult to intervene, to act. It's important, however, for them to choose to act and to intervene when they see bullying happening. And very often, it's unfortunately not what happens. We also see that among, let's say, between 90 and 95% of the students have indicated that when they are witnessing a case of bullying, they really feel very ill at ease, very uncomfortable. But in spite of that, they choose not to intervene. So that is really what has to be taught to our students, is how to intervene in a case, in an incident of bullying, when they are witnessing an act of bullying. Well, it's very interesting to note
have an effect on the behavior not only of the intimidator, the bully, but also on the bully's friends and the observers that are watching the victimization. On aimerait savoir ton opinion.
We'd love to have your opinion, because we've also heard say, at least through the emails, that older students seem to be better able to avoid. They're aware enough to be able to avoid anything that might provoke bullying, whereas younger students still haven't quite learned those skills. What do you think? I don't think it's that the older students avoid. It's because the bullies know that they don't have to show the older students that they have that power. Since everybody's equal, everybody's the same age, they don't have to prove to others. When you're young, you want to prove to the older ones that you're good, that you can bully smaller ones. But once you've grown up as a student, you're equal to others. Also, once you've acquired a certain age, the younger, either middle school or young secondary school students, they're young and they admire you. They look up to you. So I think our role should be to protect them. Gee, you're a nice guy. He's a nice guy. Okay, so let's go to Halifax now.
Not just on bullying, but also perhaps on what we can do about it, whether we're big or small.
I think a lot of times what is the key point is to dealing with it is anonymously. Like a lot of times people, they fear that something might happen to them if they say something about it, and a lot of times it's referred to as ratting rather than reporting, because I've been in a situation where I have reported something and it has been dealt with right away, and it had to do with bullying. So I think that if you do bring it to a level to someone with authority, then it's a lot easier to deal with it, because if you just keep it at a peer level, then a lot of times it doesn't get dealt with properly, because it's harder for like a friend to do something to discipline somebody when they don't really have authority. They're just your friends. They can't do anything to the bully, rather than if you're in school and you get actually penalized for doing something wrong. It's a lot easier to take care of it that way.
It's interesting. We've got experts here in Gatineau as well as in BC that are just waving their hands. They have comments to say. Let's go see somebody first and foremost who hasn't had the opportunity to speak, but certainly has the possibility of addressing what our last speaker said. He is in a position of authority in the schools, and we'd love to hear from you, officer.
Bonjour. Absolument. Tu as des excellents points.
Yes, absolutely. There are excellent points that have been raised by all students. One more particularly is to be active, to intervene, to report those events to a person of authority, whether it's a police officer in a school, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a principal, whether it's a parent or other friends. It can be done anonymously. It can be done so that it's done discreetly, that the person can speak without fear, and that the victim not be penalized as well, and that the bullied person remains safe. I think there's a lot that can be done at the administration level to avoid penalizing the victims. Well, that's very interesting to see your perspective, because you are really in the school, physically in the schools. And you, I believe, Professor, I believe you work outside the school environment? No, I also go to the schools. We implement violent programs to prevent violence in schools. We speak to the administrators. We also try to implement programs to help children. We have mentoring systems. It's important, as the officer said, that a person who's been a witness or who has been bullied, the person should be able to go and report this, and the administration should be able to receive this information and say, thank you for saying so, this will be taken into consideration, this will change. So what's important is that that students mustn't feel that they have to keep this a secret. You know, I'd like to correct a certain impression that might not be quite correct. I think the older students also are often bullied or are bulliers. Children who come at the secondary level who might have certain learning disabilities or certain disabilities, they are often the victims when they're older. So it's not because you're older that you're not threatened by bullying. Yes, well, even among adults in the workplace, we have this, what we call harassment in the workplace, where bosses think they can harass their employees because they believe they're the boss, they're stronger, and they can abuse that strength. So this attitude is perpetuated throughout your life. How about you? I admit that it's quite true. It can happen at any level, but I think that if you're in the older group in the secondary school and the high schools, you should have acquired a certain maturity where you don't have to prove yourself in a violent way. However, I think that when we see something happening, we also have a responsibility to act. I have a lot of friends. I have friends who are violent, and I don't think it's worth it. I tell them so. There's other ways to settle conflicts and other situations. Bullying is not the answer. There should be another way. Well, like what? Could you give us some concrete examples of other options? Well, how about speaking to the person and saying, okay, there's a problem, you're causing a problem for me, this is what it does. I don't want to be violent towards you, I'd rather speak to you about it. I mean, not everybody's as mature as others, you know, to be able to do that. Some people don't want to do that. They don't want to talk. They say, well, why should I bother talking? It's up to that other person not to act that way, not to bug me. Well, I think you should take all these situations in a relaxed way. And if you're not happy, speak to others, speak to your friends. Let's go to Halifax now.
What she just said, do you think that when you're in a situation of bullying and you're the victim, that there's a way to talk your way out of it? And in fact, when you are the bully, that instead of going with your own aggressive impulses, that you can speak to the person that you consider to be weaker than you?
Well, in that bullying situation, see, like if the bully wanted to give mercy to the person, but you know, if the person was a fast talker, can get themselves out of a situation, and then, you know, that would be better. But sometimes it's not about getting themselves out of the situation because the bully's going to pursue them no matter if they try to run or if they see them some other time. Or maybe sometimes the bully has friends that bullies the person along with them, so that's why it's harder to do that. But if you say something ahead of time, then maybe things would change.
Well, what about our friends in BC? We've read a lot of reports that there's cyberbullying going on there where you don't even know who the actual bully is. You're just seeing messages, text messages on cell phones and PDAs, rumors going on about you. You don't know who started it. You don't know how to end it. Can we hear some examples about that and what we can do about it?
Well, personally, I think that cyberbullying is a big issue, but at Burnaby North, we tend to focus more on bullying that goes on around schools. Like, we also have a peacemaker program, and that's where a peacemaker is a facilitator between two parties of conflicts. And this is completely different from the punitive system, where, say, an administrator would expel or suspend the bully. But with a peacemaker system, we have restorative justice, and that's where we gather all the people affected by these incidents, and in that way, they are able to come to a satisfying solution. And I think that's one of the best ways to solve bullying.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's go see on the other side of Canada now what they have to say. Halifax, we are listening.
Hi, I'd just like to say that the way that bullies are being punished is kind of not wrong, but just dealt in the wrong way, just by, it's not necessarily being by suspension, but just by educating them and teaching them what they're doing is wrong, and just showing them what the effects of it are on the other people. Thank you.
Okay, good to know that you are actually listening, paying attention, and thinking about this. Students across Canada here uniting, sharing with us, interacting. I think that is definitely the first step, and there are indeed many solutions to this. Qu'est-ce que t'en penses?
And what do you think about it? What I wanted to add, well, is to tell the bullier there are other ways to deal. You don't have to show that you are stronger in order to settle the matters. You can dialogue, you can talk. So if you are alone, you will have much less impact on him. But get together and face the bullier. And there will be fewer problems, and you will be able to defeat bullying. What's quite interesting is that we saw some reports where the bulliers were being tormented by their former victims, and it changes. What goes around comes around. So we have to talk about it, we have to dialogue about it to find the proper solutions. I believe that a very good solution would be to start educating children before going to school. What is good, what is bad, and to tell the child it's not right to treat people that way. Yeah. And there's something bad can happen to you if you act that way. So the parents have to start in the home. So if the parents start teaching their children at a young age, it will be better. And the children will learn through example, and that comes back to the roots of bullying. Why would a person become a bully? And let's go back to BC now.
Well, I think a major part of the problem, especially in high schools, is being effectively able to recognize bullying, because often it takes a more subtle form than just the violence that we think it should. So I think that, for example, if people are very preoccupied with their own day, they may not be able to recognize bullying if they see it in the hallways. So I think part of the solution would be to talk about what kind of forms that bullying can take, and how to be able to recognize it so that the people may intervene and hopefully prevent more violence occurring.
Yeah, prevention is absolutely key. In fact, I'd love to hear from a teacher about prevention, perhaps in Halifax.
Well, I think the bottom line about what we're talking about today and why everybody's here is dialogue and possible solutions. But I think, from my perspective, we are in the business of educating, which means students at a young age have to understand what bullying it is, all the forms it comes in, and then what they can do to help or aid somebody who is a victim. I think that's the number one thing we have to address. Students will tell you across this country that, for some cases, suspension is nothing more than a vacation. And quite frankly, that's not an answer to our problem. Our problem is being able to sit down with students and talk about what is bullying. If somebody is bullying, some people need to know that is a very, it hurts people in ways that they don't always necessarily see. And what I think is important is that people need to be pointed out. Students need to know that if bullying occurs, an educational process has to occur for the bully, because we can't change our behavior unless we understand how it affects others. So that's where I think is a really important key at young ages, to get students to understand that bullying comes in many forms, and that if it occurs, you can anonymously report it. And in doing so, as we do at our school when incidents are reported, we sit students down and we talk about the issue rather than say, just go home for 3 days because you know what you did was wrong. Quite frankly, that's just not good enough, because it's obvious that it doesn't work.
Well, we've got Luba, who's a principal out in BC, and would you agree with that opinion, Luba?
Définitivement. Il y en a beaucoup de choses.
Definitely. A lot has already been said on bullying, and I believe that it's very important that administrators in schools should never ignore the reporting by students or various conversations amongst students and with the teachers or with the parents. It's very important for the parents to understand that they have a role to play, a very important one at that. They have to recognize the signs of bullying. When their children come home and they raise small problems that occurred in school, they might be small problems when they raise it for their parents, but undoubtedly it is a much deeper problem in their hearts, and we have to recognize it. We have to talk about it openly. We have to teach the parents and the teachers how to help the students to trust themselves, to believe in themselves, and to recognize all signs of bullying. And it's true, it always comes back to the belief in oneself, be it the victim or being the bullier. So we'll go into the details shortly, and we will attempt to find what the root of the solution is. We will not find the solution, but a few possibilities that we can think about. And if after that we can continue exchanging, talking, to change matters, not only for our children, but for the children of our children. First of all, let's look at a few pictures that tell us a lot.
Stupid! You're such a loser. Come on, Four Eyes, give me your lunch money now. Give it to me before I smack you. You know what? You're the dumbest kid in the whole school. No wonder nobody likes you. I'm gonna beat the snot out of you. Yeah, come on, bring it. Come on, let's go. Are you afraid of me, eh? I'll take all you guys on. Let's go. Bullies just want to show off. But if everyone just walked away, imagine how silly bullies would look. Walk away. Tell someone. Because bullies aren't bigger than all of us.
T'es stupide. T'es juste un bon à rien. Hey, les barnés, donne-moi l'argent de ton lunch, puis vite. Hey, tu fais dur, hein? Ben normal que personne veuille être ton ami. T'es le gars le plus stupide de toute l'école. Va t'écraser en face. Quoi, tu me crois pas? Amène-toi ici, va te montrer ça, moi. Ouais, amène tout le monde, amène n'importe qui, ça me dérange pas.
Tout ce que les taxeurs veulent, c'est se faire remarquer. Mais imagine un peu comme il y aurait l'air fou si tout le monde les ignorait. Éloigne-toi, confie-toi, parce qu'un taxeur seul n'est jamais aussi fort que nous tous ensemble.
Well, I mentioned earlier that we had emails. Effectivement, on a eu des courriels tout au long.
Yes, we've had emails throughout the program, and it's unbelievable where these emails come from.
It's phenomenal because obviously it's touching a chord in the hearts of many people, not just here in Canada, but also in the U.S. and in the United Kingdom. Peux-tu partager quelques courriels avec nous?
I'd like to share a few with us. So first of all, we have one from the UK. We have one from Canada. We have one from Scotia. We have one from Burnaby South Secondary School. We have one from Quebec and Halifax. We have one from Gatineau. We have one from Scotia. We have one from Burnaby South Secondary School. We have one from Quebec and Halifax. We have one from Scotia. We have one from Burnaby South Secondary School. We have one from Gatineau. We have one from Scotia. We have one from Burnaby South Secondary School. We have one from Quebec and Halifax. We have one from Scotia. We have one from Burnaby South Secondary School. We have one from Gatineau. We have one from Scotia. We have one from Burnaby South Secondary School. We have one from Quebec and Halifax. We have one from Scotia. We have one from Burnaby South Secondary School. We have one from Gatineau. We have one from Scotia. We have one from Burnaby South Secondary School. We have one from Quebec and Halifax. We have one from Scotia. We have one from Burnaby South Secondary School
teasing me or writing disgusting things on my stuff. I don't know what to do. I can't live without them as I have known them for 12 years, but I don't know what to do. I don't have any other friends to hang around with, and if I tell them how much they are hurting me, then they'll laugh. Please help.
Hey, ça fait de la peine, ça. Hey,
this really hurts. Can you imagine the courage it took for that person to look onto the internet, to look up what dealt with bullying, and to take the time to write and to share? Gee, that person must feel so alone. Well, remember, you are not alone. The victim is not alone. And now we have another history, something that came from the United States, and it talks about a woman who has been the victim.
And anybody likes her, not even me. She lies a whole lot and is two-faced. I don't like them teasing her, but there's really nothing I can do, is there? I told them off my other friends, I didn't like her and that she was always trying to start fights. Well, words got back to her and she just got an attitude with me and asked if I thought I was funny. What shall I do?
Quoi faire dans une situation comme ça? Ça revient.
So what to do in such a situation goes back to what my friend said there with the blonde hair, who was saying that one of his friends, in fact, was bullying others. And as a friend, he decided to put his foot down and to do something. And the person who is writing this knows the answer. It's as though she required help. She required some encouragement to do the right thing. That is my own opinion. But let's see in Halifax, possibly.
Well, I think that, first of all, I've got to say how encouraged I am by all these comments that we're hearing from these young people across the country. It's quite a strong indicator of the fact that some things that are taking place are having a positive effect. And I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Government of Canada's National Crime Prevention Strategy, which has giving partial support and sponsorship to hundreds of projects throughout this country, including this very one that we're involved in today, with young people, children, their parents, school staff, on becoming more informed about what happens when bullying incidents take place. But I really wanted to address one particular subject, which I think is very, very important, and that is somebody mentioned that when they get into high school, the bullying incidents seem to subside somewhat. And I'd like to say that while it may appear that way on the surface, I think it just manifests itself in another form or fashion. For example, you have to be more aware of sexual harassment. That's another form that takes place, or relationship or dating violence. That's still a form of bullying that we should not overlook. And the Government of Canada is really trying its best to ensure that the types of initiatives that we become involved with, such as this, are really going to heighten the public's awareness of these types of situations, and through that, the education process can begin, like Wade Smith said back here, and we could start to do some healing and education with bullies as well as victims and their families.
Let's go to Burnaby now and see what they have to say. Obviously, it's part of the mission for the Government of Canada to do something about it, but it's also part of our mission in doing this show and going on an individual-by-individual basis and opening up this dialogue to everyone who wants to participate, because this is for everyone. So please share some of your thoughts in Burnaby.
Yeah, well, I think the bully affects more than just the guy, the victim. I think, like, if witnesses see what's happening and then, like, they just, like, walk by, right? And then that day the victim commits suicide and because of all the bullying, I think it affects the witnesses because they realize that they could have helped and yet they just walked away and then someone dies because of bullying. So, and I agree with what the person in Halifax said, that bullying does seem to subside in high school, because elementary, I think they're starting to talk about it more, and then the kids are getting aware, and then, yeah.
Okay, thank you so very much for sharing that with us. I know that it took a lot to do so. Perhaps we can also get some more sharing from the other side of the country. We're listening.
Well, I just want to bring us back to that letter from the UK, from the kids that the kid that needed help. I think we should talk about that for a second, at least.
I agree with you. Would you like to share more on that?
Well, I was just wondering if anyone had any good points on it. I didn't think about anything, but if anyone figured something out, I think it would be helpful to help the kid. Maybe if he made different friends in a different environment, but he definitely shouldn't stay with the people that are hurting him so much.
But the question is, why does he really think that these are his friends? I mean, tell me if I'm wrong here, but somebody is attacking you, right? Somebody is writing nasty things about you on your bag or writing on your person, making you feel bad about yourself. Is that really a friend? No.
It's not a friend, because a friend wouldn't do anything to hurt your feelings.
Do we all agree with that, that friends wouldn't do things? I mean, sometimes you do without wanting to, but if it's on an ongoing basis, is that a friend?
Non, je crois pas que c'est une de tes amies, là.
No, I don't think that person would be your friend. I think you have to always support your friends and never deride them, never put them down. Especially if somebody is being nasty, you have to defend your friend. If your friend isn't strong enough or is too embarrassed, you have to intervene and say, you have no reason to put people down just to bring your own image up. Well, we saw many examples. You have a case. Well, I'm going back to the United Kingdom guy. That happened to me. I used to have friends. I used to think they were nice guys, but they turned. They really disgusted me after a while, and I had to make the decision. I decided I was going to take my life in my own hands, and I separated myself from that group because it's really difficult to be in that position. And at that time, I said, well, I'm cutting relations with them, and I completely separated myself. And how are you feeling now? A lot better. A lot better. Well, that's great, because now I see you have a smile on your face and you have the courage to do it, and it's not easy. I had to do that too when I was younger. Well, it's hard at first, but then afterwards you say, well, if they had been your friends, they wouldn't have acted that way. There are people who are better than that. And it's true. And people around us here, I think they all know inside themselves that they should be with real friends. And if you decide to leave some groups and go and find real friends, shows a lot of courage from you.
That feels that his friends are attacking him and he doesn't know what to do about it.
Yeah, I think that if they're hurting you, they're not your friends at all. You should get away from them as soon as possible. Tell somebody who's older. An acronym we use at our school is RAT, which means to ask responsible action taken. It's not thinking on the person. It's not being a tattletale. It's telling what is true. You need to stand up for yourself. It's not only helping you, it's also helping the bully.
Okay, well, you know, we all seem to be saying the same language here, but why is it that we know this in theory, but again, when it comes to practice, we hear it over and over and over again? Qu'est-ce que t'en penses?
So what do you think? How come it doesn't really happen that way? Well, it's not so much on this subject, but I want to talk about a personal experience that I had. Last year I was new at school, and there were all sorts of rumors that were being said about me. And then I felt I was in my smaller group of friends, and I didn't quite know what to do about it. And it was very important to me. And I always had friends with me to go and see the authorities. And at one point, I couldn't always talk, but when my friends were there, they made me feel stronger. They encouraged me. And it was important for me to know that the authorities were taking my case seriously. The people who were in a position of authority at the school. It's important for a young person to know that what he or she says is taken seriously. And then there will be a lot of support. A lot of people will come and speak to the bullied person, and they can say, if you really feel bullied, please talk about it. You're not alone. Yeah, that's very good to have this support. So first of all, know who are your real friends, and then if the situation persists, to have enough confidence to go and see the people in the authority.
And do you feel that you can discern what is a friend and what isn't a friend in Halifax?
I just feel if your friends are
hurting you and they're putting you down, then you should really tell them how you feel. And if they don't want to listen and they keep doing what they were doing to hurt you, then you should really find some new friends. And I feel that it takes a while before you really learn who are your true friends and who you can really trust. And you just have to be more careful about the kind of crew that you hang around with.
Okay, let's go to BC now and get your perspective on things.
Okay, I just want to say that from my personal experience, I know not all people walk away when they see bullying. When I was being bullied, my friend stood up for me and she stopped the bully who was bullying me. I really appreciate for what she did. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've also got kids here are just wanting to open up on this subject. It's incredible. It's like I've got 5 people just right here next to me that want to give their opinion. So please, partage avec nous.
Ben, moi je pense que...
Well, I think that if you have a friend is somebody who really cares for the other person. If you think that your buddy doesn't care for you, well, he's not your friend. Even if you don't have any other friends, it's better to be alone than to be with somebody who's bullying you or who's not nice to you. Because at least you don't suffer as much. So let them down, go away, go find some friends if you can. You wanted to say something quickly? Well, if you make new friends, to make new friends, you can get involved in other fields of interest, get involved in a sport, go to other activities outside the school. That's a way to make new friends.
Now that's a big step in the right direction. Let's go to BC. What do you have to say?
Hi, going back to the email, I just think it's probably an unfortunate case for the young girl or boy that they have never really made like a genuine friend, because friends are supposed to be there to support and help each other out, and it doesn't seem like her friends are doing that for her. They're just putting her down and making her feel hurt and uncomfortable, and I definitely think that she needs to ask herself if she's being showed the same kind of respect that she's showing her friends. And if she's not, then she needs to find some new friends, be more outgoing, maybe join some sort of club or counselor team and just meet new friends. And having one real, genuine friend is going to be a whole lot better than these people who are supposedly her friends that she has right now.
Isn't that the truth? And I wonder to what extent we can add cyber friends to that, because I feel like there's been so much response to that particular email that you've got a whole bunch of new friends that are here that are willing to listen and so on and so forth. And even if we live in different countries, even different continents, what is really the basis of a friendship has nothing to do with actual location. It's about how you treat the other person. Let's go to Halifax. Qu'est-ce que vous en pensez?
So what do you think in Halifax?
When someone is a bully, the reason they forget, like they know that they're doing something wrong, but a lot of times they're doing it to fit in, and to them it's more important to fit in and gain respect from people that are around, that are not just bystanders, but they're friends that are there, you know, pushing them on and to be a bully. And then at the same time, someone who's being bullied or that is with a group of friends that isn't treating them well, a lot of times they still feel like they sort of belong in that group, even though they are being picked on. Because I know I've been in situations where I've had a friend that was really treating me badly, but I still wanted to be around her because I still felt like I still had a sense of belonging. And I think a lot of times the reason people do things is because they want that to fit in, and that to them that's more important than doing the right thing and leaving someone alone.
Yeah, you mentioned doing the right thing, and once again, it's interesting when we look at what the right thing is, when we think about it, and when we think about what the right thing is as we're doing it. Is it really the right thing? On a seulement quelques instants qui nous restent. On vous laisse.
We only have a few moments left. We'd like to know from an expert, from a professor, a PhD, what can we do with all of this information today, and how can we go ahead? Well, I think I've heard very good ideas here. People know that it's a question of talking among one another, of helping one another, but also the parents, the teachers, the directors, the principals, they also have to intervene, not only with a bullied person, but they also have to go and talk to the bullies, because both people need help. Different strategies, of course, have to be used. You can say, you shouldn't do this because you wouldn't want somebody to do it to you. We can't tolerate this behavior. And then it's important that everybody takes his own responsibilities. Everybody has to develop those social skills. Okay, so let's go see in British Columbia.
Thing to add.
Yes, I totally agree with everything. I think that to recognize for us adults who are supporting the children and us administrators who are supporting the teachers and the parents, to recognize what are the symptoms of the bullying is, and listen carefully, listen and take it to heart. I think if we're responding with our hearts and we're feeling for the victims, we are going to be more effective in providing strategies for all of those people who are suffering from bullying. And acting from heart is what I'm going to suggest for everybody.
Okay, can we hear from the young man next to you? Once again, we've heard from the experts. You are, by definition, an expert, the RCMP officer in the school, seeing it every second of every day. How can we make things better as we move forward?
I think a lot of suggestions were brought up in the last hour. We've been listening to the students, and they're the one who are going to tell us what to do. If I may just add one thing, is that whatever they do, they're going to have somehow to take a leap to quit that comfort zone that they're in, and that's not always easy to do, but it has to be done, and in order to solve that problem, in order to take their status of victim into their hand and changing them into a student that goes to school and functions and is safe, they have to take a leap and just trust that. And I'll agree with my colleague here when they say that the teachers and the parents and the administrators have to take it from the heart, and they also have to somehow take ownership of the problem and really, really go at it and work at it, because it never ends, but it can be made better.
Right. Well, it's also interesting to note the correlation between bullies and the high percentage of them that actually end up in the incarceration system. That's for another topic. Let's go to Halifax for closing. Your thoughts?
Well, I think you've touched on a very interesting point there, and I think the RCMP member would be the first to say that our traditional methods of dealing with criminals, the apprehension, the sentencing, the incarceration, the rehabilitation, has not been entirely effective, and we need to find new ways of approaching it. And I think that by doing this public education process and increasing educational materials for children, youth, and their families, I think we can pay some dividends on the front end.
Okay, thank you very, very much for participating. We've got so many emails, we don't even have time, unless, here, this is one line. What would you have to say to close?
Quelle est la forme d'intimidation la plus commune?
What is the most common form of bullying? So what would it be? I would say that it goes by stages. It would go, for example, bullying would be verbal, then it would end up being a physical bullying. Well, thank you very much, and thank you to all the schools, all the students, all the experts, everyone who has reached us here. Thank you in Burnaby, thank you in Halifax. And of course, here in Gatineau, who have received us in their library. You've been absolutely fantastic. We've only started the dialogue on this subject today. Help us to continue the dialogue. See you soon, and thank you.